Really excited for this session. Having Kristoffer Barriteau be our speaker tonight. Kris is a 1995 initiate of our Theta Mu chapter at University of Massachusetts Amherst. He's a retired Special Forces Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel with 25 years of U.S. Army service. He commanded multinational and special operations forces across the globe, earning 4 Bronze Stars, Valor Awards, and numerous other military recognitions. An experienced CEO, business owner, and project manager, an expert in strategic and operational planning and execution, Kris founded Lodgepole Solutions, a successful pharmaceutical sales organization, and now serves as CEO and founder of Revolutionary Telehealth, a Green Beret, Navy SEAL, and woman-owned company committed to delivering elite, compassionate care rooted in its special operations heritage. So with that, thank you everyone who's joined. And Kris, I'm going to hand it over to you. Kris, I think your mic is muted.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
All right, hey guys, thanks for jumping on tonight and spending a little bit of time with me. I'll do my best to keep it engaging and interesting, and hopefully something new that you guys can take from this. So my name's Kristoffer Barriteau, like Bailey mentioned, UMass Pike alumni, retired Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, 25 years of service, and CEO of a couple companies. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in chat and ask. I've already talked to Bailey about I'm down to have a conversation type format if you guys have questions. All right, let's see here. All right, so what I'm going to talk about here for the next 30 to 45 minutes is really about leadership, team building, and mental health. Starting back in 1995 in my Pi Kappa Alpha days at UMass, there were very little photos. There were no smartphones, and believe me, that's a very good thing, as I'm sure most of you guys have experienced. But what I can tell you is my time at UMass as a Pike was truly the core component of shaping my future leadership for the next 30 years across multiple different spectrums, the military and the civilian world. So I pledged in 1995. I lived in the house for a few years. I held a few positions: house manager, pledge master, vice president. And I could tell you that one of the greatest leadership challenges of my career, and I still reflect on this to this day and still use it as a story, tying it all together, was my time in Pi Kappa Alpha at UMass Amherst. And I say this really for a couple of reasons. One of the most challenging experiences that I have managed in my leadership career is leading peers. And, in the military, you're a commander, there's a chain of command. In the business world, you're a CEO, there's a hierarchy of sorts, and people need to follow your instructions. There's a little more complicated than that, but generally speaking, that's the case. When you're a leader among your peers, it's not so much the case, right? So you have to find very unique ways to motivate, to maintain that moral compass, to lead and guide your brothers and your chapters into proper decision making that might deter the near-term immediate gratification decision for a longer-term growth or sustainability for the chapter and the organization. So I could tell you that as we go through this presentation, I will really keep that thread going of how my time in Pi Kappa Alpha UMass Amherst has really shaped and informed my decision-making, and how I would rely on the lessons I learned back then on how to solve some really, really unique problems. All right, so at UMass, graduated in 2000, did ROTC, and I was commissioned in the Army in 2000, and was off to the force to start my 25-year career in the military. That took me to the Iraq War. So Operation Iraqi Freedom 1, the invasion of Iraq. I was a young platoon leader, a young second lieutenant for the invasion. I was that Bradley platoon leader. So if we look at that picture, you'll see what looks like a tank. That's a Bradley fighting vehicle. Has tow missiles, a cannon, and you fit some infantrymen in the back. Also me in Saddam Hussein's palace in one of his golden chairs, another palace behind me, and my platoon taking a high-speed photo there in the bottom right. I did 4 or 5 months in Iraq, learned a lot, had some tremendous experiences, was actually in the same town to Crit where Saddam Hussein was captured. I didn't have anything to do with it, but it was a couple miles from where I was actually located when he was captured, which was a pretty cool experience. During my time there in OIF1, my Special Forces selection packet was approved. So I was approved to go try out for Special Forces. The way it works in the Army, Special Forces in particular, is you need to have time in the Army as an officer or as an enlisted service member before you put in a selection packet. So as an officer, you're going to be a first lieutenant, promotable to captain, and then you can put a packet in, get approved, and go to selection. So what is the Special Forces? What are the Green Berets? Here on the left, you'll see the kind of the phases of the training that I'll talk about briefly over the next few minutes. So the first step of earning your Green Beret is to go to Special Forces selection. So that's a 2-month program at Fort Bragg where your name tape is removed, your rank is removed, your identity is basically removed, and you're one of the guys. So you'll have lower enlisted, you'll have captains and everything in between there attending the selection. You don't know what the expectations are. You don't know what the standards are. You're basically told be somewhere with a certain amount of weight in your ruck, and it could be a 5-mile ruck march, it could be a 10-mile run. You don't know what it's going to be. So it's a very unique environment where you are forced to perform as an individual with very little guidance, and then perform as a team with very little guidance. And that team is comprised of equals for all intents and purposes, because you don't know, you're not supposed to really know who's the captain, who's the private or the specialist. That private or specialist could be leading the particular mission, or the captain could be leading the mission. So you need to be able to integrate and work well as a team member and a leader with a random group of dudes that you've never met before, and you're challenged with some very unique situations, carrying 200-pound sandbags for miles with makeshift stick litters, or moving a Jeep with 3 wheels and figuring out how you do that for 5 miles and things like that. So very, very unique team events that are gauging and judging your ability to be a member of the team, to work well with others, to not quit, and to be a leader and be able to effectively lead a team if you're in a leadership position. So the selection rate, I don't know, is about maybe 25 to 30%, give or take, success rate. A lot of people quit. It's not easy, but it is what it is. You graduate selection, and then you start your what's called the SFQC, or the Special Forces Qualification Course. For officers, back when I went through, we went to Infantry Advanced Course at Fort Benning. So it was a 4-month course of advanced military or infantry and mech armored maneuver, where we learn how to integrate with the force, manage large-scale maneuver operations and tactics and procedures. And it's a kind of a core component of the Special Forces team leader or detachment commander when he gets back to his operational detachment, integrating with the partner forces or with our host nation forces, or more in particular, our coalition forces and our big conventional army, which is a critical component to what we do. So once that wraps up, we head back to Fort Bragg and we conduct phase 2, small unit tactics. This is another 2 months or so. We are living in the field, carrying a heavy rucksack, learning ambushes and patrolling, reconnaissance, and again, working as a team, this time with more of a hierarchy where you do have your rank, unlike selection, and you're building a team of 12 folks that have certain objectives and certain goals that they need to achieve, and how to get to success. So another great experience there for small unit tactics. And then we roll into the operations course, or the military operational specialty, it's called. For me, is the 18 Alpha course. So that's the officer course. And that was about 4 months of detailed planning, intelligence operations, joint agency integration, and a whole bunch of other very particular to the detachment commander skills that we would need to learn, taking it to our detachments once we graduate the Q course. And that was a phenomenal experience. And then we go to language school. So language school, there's different categories of language school. It's 6 months for me as an Arabic linguist, if you will, of all day, every day schoolhouse training. So there are different categories of language difficulty, Chinese, Arabic being at the top, and then Spanish being at the bottom, and everything in between. The goal within Special Forces, and one of our key force multipliers, is our language capability. So you look at the invasion of Afghanistan, in 2001, and the language capability that those fifth group folks brought to the environment where they could speak the language and communicate with the host nation is critical. So that's the purpose of language school. So we can go out there and jump into a foreign nation and be able to immediately start doing our job with our host nation partners, whoever they may be. So after you wrap up language school, you go to Robin Sage. So if you've never heard of Robin Sage, it is the world's largest unconventional warfare exercise. And I encourage you to Google it and check it out because it's an unbelievable thing. What it basically is hundreds, if not thousands of square miles in North Carolina are dedicated in the civilian community, towns and villages and communities and everything, to support Exercise Robin Sage. And what it is for the detachment is we do a week of planning, and then you infill and spend about 2 weeks in the field doing irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare tactics, and that kind of stuff. So in execution, what it looks like is we jump in through an airplane, land on the ground, and link up with the G chief or the guerrilla chief, right? Basically, the host nation leader of the force we're looking to partner with. This is a very, very unique leadership experience because he wants to work with U.S. forces. He wants to work with the special forces and the tools and the assets that we bring to bear. But he also is a proud leader of his many thousand men, whatever it may be. And we need to convince him through whatever means we can utilize to work with us, right? While stopping him from committing war crimes or Geneva Convention violations or law of land warfare violations, which could be commonplace in his environment, because we work all over the world in environments that are not as clean and black and white as the United States of America, right? So we have to find very unique ways to work with these people to achieve our national security objectives. And that exercise is it. And it's based off of Vietnam and work with the Montagnards and work in unconventional warfare across borders and developed over decades to support phenomenal training for the Special Forces team. Each member of the team needs to integrate with their host nation partner just as much as the captain does to build that rapport, build that team integrity, and then accomplish the mission, whatever we're tasked to do. So that's Robin Sage. And then finally, SEER School. So survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. You spend a week out there learning how to survive, live off the land, and do all those good things. And then you are in evasion for a week where there are active patrols out there looking for you and your small team to capture you. You don't want to be captured. So you're eating roadkill and finding native plants that you can eat to live for that week or so while you're evading capture. And then the next phase of that is the resistance portion where you are a prisoner of war. It was not fun, but it is one of the best training experiences you'll ever have. It teaches you your capabilities and how to survive in that situation as a prisoner of war. And it was an unbelievable experience. So that is the Q course in a whole right there, from start to finish, generally about 2 years, depending on your job. So the 18 Delta, the medic, has the longest training pipeline. He has a year of medical training proper on top of his normal pipeline stuff that you see here. That's his course, his MOS course. But you also have weapons sergeant, engineer sergeant, communication sergeant, the team leader, the captain, or the medic, and that rounds out the team from a training perspective. In an operational team, you have the team sergeant and the warrant officer as well. Couple cool pictures here. Just that night vision picture is rapids training. It's rapidly exfilling off a helicopter with ATVs. And that's me actually getting some needles for medical training. And that cool picture right there was my team warrant officer actually jumping out of a fixed wing aircraft on a halo jump. Looks like he's coming in, but pretty cool photo. All right. So this is the next kind of 10 or 15 years, all comprised compacted in the one slide here. I was fortunate enough to be the detachment commander of 2 Special Forces operational detachments. So my first was a mobility detachment where we had our infill platform was ATVs, snowmobiles, horses, gun trucks. That was kind of our specialty, that rapid infill method. My second team, which I was very, very, very fortunate to get, was what's called an advanced special operations team. And just to summarize what that is, it's very human intelligence based. And I was driving around Iraq in a black Mercedes with an MP5 on my hip and a suit and tie, where, just the deployment before, I'm running and gunning. Very different experience, great opportunity. I was blessed to do that. So everybody loves a cool story. So I will tell a cool story that doesn't involve shooting, destruction, or violence, but clever ingenuity of special forces, outside the box thinking, and how some amazing things can be achieved in our with our folks. So we're in northwestern Iraq, and there's a city where the police chief and his entire police force are corrupt. They're working with the insurgents. We've been collecting data on these guys and intel for months and months and months. It was a very complex situation, because how do you deal with a 50-person police force that's corrupt, that's dispersed amongst an entire city, in a direct action kind of environment? It's very, very difficult. It's very high risk. So we did a ton of detailed planning and came up with some really clever ways to solve this problem. So what we did over months of target development was work with the police chief, work with his leadership and his police officers in rapport building and team building and weapons training and medical training, and all under the guise of building this relationship where we would supply them better weapons, medical training, medical care, and give them tools to be better, right? This rapport building allowed us to execute our objective, which was to capture every one of these guys without firing a shot and remove a massive insurgent network out of the battlefield. So what we did was, the time came for us to have the huge meeting about 3 or 4 months in, where we were going to do a full assessment of all the weapons. We were going to do a full assessment of the medical standing of his police officers. And we were going to be able to determine what we could provide him from resources after this initial meeting. So we were able to get every single one of his police officers on the force in a walled-in courtyard, stocking their weapons in the middle of the courtyard, with all my guys still around, armed and being, friendly and working, playing the mission, playing the game, while all the police officers stacked their weapons and then sat along the side. Meanwhile, myself, my team sergeant, my warrant officer are inside the chief of police office with his deputy. So all this is meticulously planned. So when the time came, I got the call on the radio that the general was inbound. The general was the Iraqi general that was flying in one of our helicopters that was actually going to land and take possession of the police chief, and then return him to for judicial action in the northern Iraq court system. So received the call, stood up, you're under arrest, bagged him, put him in handcuffs, walked him outside. All my guys outside did the same thing, locked down the courtyard. Iraqi general landed, came in, his forces flooded from the desert outside the city and took possession of the 35 or so corrupt police officers. And then, we handed the police chief over to the general, who flew him out, took him for trial. So just a very, very unique way to solve a problem, where we removed a 40-person insurgent network running a city completely without firing a shot, by detailed planning, smarts, outside the box thinking. So just a cool little war story right there for you guys that we actually accomplished, gosh, quite a while ago now. So after my time there in northern Iraq for a couple deployments, I was selected to serve as the 10th Group Headquarters Commander. And then I went to grad school at Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, where I received a Master's of Science in Defense Analysis. From there, I worked at NATO Special Operations Headquarters in Belgium, and then was stationed in Germany really for the next 5 years. In Germany, I had a very unique experience, again, that allowed me to really pull from my Pike days. To be quite honest. So I was a commander out there and an executive officer for the 1st Special Forces, for the 1st Battalion's 10 Special Forces group out there in Germany. And then I deployed to Afghanistan under a NATO umbrella as the Special Operations Task Group East Commander. So this is another very unique leadership experience. I commanded a NATO force of Slovakians, Hungarians, Romanians, Estonians, and my guys. All different nations, different languages, different cultures, different ways of doing business. The mission was shared. Everybody had the same mission, but everybody had a very, very different outlook on how to manage that at every level, from basic logistics to tactical operations on the objective, and how to execute that. So another unique leadership challenge is, well, how do I get all these people to work together? How do we accomplish the mission in this environment with all of these nations' elite warriors under one umbrella? spread throughout the battlefield trying to accomplish these things. So it was an incredible leadership opportunity for me. And I can tell you that thread that goes all the way back to forming teams and identifying unique challenges or unique situations to solve problems in a leadership capacity was very, very evident when I was the commander of SOTG East. From there, I was stationed at SOCEUR, which is Special Operations Command Europe, and I was the future ops planner, where I did some pretty cool things. I deployed to Ukraine for a little bit to help them stand up their special operations force. So at that time, it was just an idea that they wanted to set up a soft-like, SOCOM-like entity at Ukrainian Defense Forces. They didn't have it. So you fast forward 5 years, and who's fighting the war against Russia for the last 4 years, right? It is that element that we stood up when we had the initial discussions back, a decade ago. So pretty cool to see how that's developed and transpired into what it is today, a very viable fighting force that was, not present a decade ago. Then I was stationed in Turkey for many, many months, doing some pretty sensitive operations down there, working with the embassy, working with the Turks, and a variety of other interagency partners, doing some cool things. So I don't want to go too much into detail of all the crazy stuff, but that was a very unique opportunity as well, working with the joint interagency and figuring all that stuff out. Finally, my last position was as the U.S. SOCOM Mission Support Element Director. This was a position at Fort Bragg where our job was to train up and support the general officers, the commanders, and their staff to take over command of all special operations, particularly in the Middle East, but some other places as well. And that's what we would do. So we would train them up and send them off with all the tools they need, and then provide some rear detachment support for them when they're leading our special operations forces overseas. Okay, so 24 years, 9 months, 10 days later, it's time for me to get out of the Army, and I had to determine what I wanted to do. What I knew I didn't want to do is work for the man. And when I say work for the man, there's a very traditional path when you spend a career in the military of being a government civilian or a contractor and working for the military industrial complex in some capacity. I knew I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try something new. I'd done my 25 years, and it was time to go out there and try new things. So while I was on terminal leave, I wasn't even out of the Army. I had started my first company, and terminal leave is like your last vacation. Like you're still in the military, but you're done. So you're on your final vacation days, and then you're done. So I actually started Lodgepole Solutions while on terminal leave. I can go a long way into how I came to that idea to start that. I had looked at everything from day trading to coffee shops to real estate. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to build something. And I had a light bulb moment about an idea of starting a medical device sales company and utilizing my leadership experience, my military experience and connections to do that. Did I know anything about medical devices? Absolutely not. Did I know anything about business? Absolutely not. But, why not, right? How did I start? Well, I started by building a team, right? Because I don't know the ins and outs like an expert does in a particular field, right? What did it take? It took courage to jump in and start something new from scratch that I knew nothing about, right? I was very used to doing this, very used of operating in this environment, if you will. So to me, it was very similar to being a leader in the special forces. I would meet with people every day and try to solve unique problems and figure out the problem set and how to proceed forward. So I didn't want the status quo. I wanted to try something new. Oftentimes I get asked, Kris, what was the biggest challenge to starting a business? What did you see and experience from the transition from military to the business world? And I could tell you that, in the special operations community in particular, we live in a bubble, right? We live in a sphere of excellence. And what I mean by that is everybody that's there worked incredibly hard to get there. We're specifically selected to get there, is cut from the same cloth as far as reliability, capability, right? It's all very similar. So if somebody tells me to do something, they know it's going to be executed at a reasonable level, right, with a reasonable expectation. The same thing if I tell somebody to do something, right? I know that they are going to do that at a reasonable level and they're going to meet my expectation. That's the standard. That's just the way it is. Getting in the civilian world, it was a shock to realize that not everybody works within that same sphere of excellence. Yeah, I would task people and I would have, people would misrepresent themselves and way overstate their capabilities. To me, that was a shock. It was culture shock, right? Because I had been in that sphere of excellence for so long. To see people not meeting the standard was enlightening. So that's what I pass on as kind of the biggest thing in my transition that I observed. And still to this day, I've learned how to mitigate and manage that. But that was my greatest experience. Now I can tell you that all of that circles back to building a team, right? And I'll talk about it here in the next few slides. But you build that team of superstars, and you build that team where a sphere of excellence and that excellent focused mindset is shared by everybody. It's a different story. That's the goal, right? And I've been able to achieve that a couple times now because I'm very fortunate because there was just a lot of superstars out there. Finally, failure. So this, every single podcaster or motivational YouTuber talks about failure and rushing to failure and, you got to fail to make it. I'll tell you that they're right, right? So I'm not going to hammer this anymore because everybody's familiar with this, but I can tell you that failure is part of the process. I failed a ton and I continue to fail more than I like, but I have accepted that it happens and it's a necessary step to getting better. And what a lot of people don't realize is all these tremendously successful folks, Jeff Bezos or Musk or Microsoft, any of these guys started in a garage 50 years ago, 45 years ago with nothing and built it up to these tremendous companies. Those are the greatest success stories. But most people that you meet that are successful have gone through a struggle. And I could tell you, starting and running a business, especially one where you don't know anything about it, is very, very difficult. But you just gotta take that leap of faith and go in there and figure out how to solve problems that are successful have gone through a struggle. And I could tell you, starting and running a business, especially one where you don't know anything about it, is very, very difficult. But you just gotta take that leap of faith and go in there and figure out how to solve problems. Okay, so where are we now? So this is a true story. A couple of years ago, I'm camping with my dog Hamlet in Montana, and we were seated next to an elderly gentleman. He had a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran hat on. And he was talking to a young lady with her laptop open, probably a VSO, VA representative. And he was discussing how his medication had been lost in the mail for 3 months, how he was afraid and didn't know who to talk to. Couldn't drive the 2.5 hours to a VA facility. And this went on for a while. And I was in shock. Like the bubble of excellence I talked about, there's a bubble of resource availability in the active duty service where you have the tools that you need there and you just go utilize those tools. So to me, I was recently retired and I was listening to this and it really, really affected me that this is the experience of an elderly Vietnam veteran that I'm listening to in the booth behind me. So this went on for a long time. And when, everything had wrapped up, I walked over to him and I thanked him for his service and introduced myself. And I walked away so frustrated there was nothing I could do to help this guy out. So literally over the next few days of camping, I thought about this and that was the genesis of Revolutionary Telehealth. It is the company that I now lead that is comprised of some seriously solid folks to really, really help out this community and others that are so desperately, looking for care. So it was time to start the next wing of the mission here. So take us to today, which is Revolutionary Telehealth. So as Bailey mentioned earlier today, we're a Green Beret, Navy SEAL, and woman-owned company, and we're comprised of veterans from all services. So we have Army battalion surgeons turned family surgeons. We have 18 Delta or Special Forces medics turned ER surgeons, Army nurses, advanced nurse practitioners, Marine Special Operations operators, and Marine infantry officers. A civilian team of absolute superstar professionals from the marketing, finance, nutrition, pharmacy, and other spaces that all share the same goal and the same heart that I started with this with 2 years ago. So that building that team and utilizing particular leadership skills by creating a shared mission has allowed us to create this phenomenal team of professionals from across multiple industries, all focused on our primary goal, which is bringing, healthcare to the communities that need it the most. So one of, or the main pillar, the main tent post of Revolutionary Telehealth is mental health. So there's a crisis for mental health in this country. What we've learned over the last year and a half or so of really fleshing out the details and building this program is the need for mental health is not just in the special operations community or the veteran community, right? College students, teachers, dentists, professionals, all demographics, right? There is a substantial need for mental health support out there in our communities. What we were able to identify is really this 5 key barriers that prevent somebody from seeking mental health. They're listed here on the slide here. So an example that I always use is during my time in the military, would I have gone for mental health care to the battalion mental health clinic? No. Would I want my wife to go to the battalion mental health clinic to receive care? No. Why is that? Well, because it's a physical location that's on post and people see you go. It's associated with work. And despite us as commanders and leaders trying to really crush that stigma, it still exists, right? It still exists enough that people don't seek treatment because they're worried about the visibility from the flagpole, from the headquarters, whomever. So people don't seek treatment. Now, the same thing applies. I have several friends in law enforcement, and their department pays for mental health, but they don't go, even though they recognize they need it, because it's part of the department, right? There's a paper trail, whether it affects one's career or not. There's an argument either way. But the bottom line is the stigma exists, and it stops people from going. So we work really hard to remove these barriers for care. That discretion and the confidentiality and the ease of access, it all ties back into that, why people aren't using mental health services. So what we've been able to do is remove all those barriers, right? And we've created unique partnerships with BetterHelp, who's the world's largest online mental health therapy platform, and Calm Health, which is the world's largest healthcare app. This is the Calm Health exclusive app or the enhanced app. It's not the basic Calm app you get at the store. So these 2 unique partnerships have allowed us to bring mental health care to not only the veteran, first responder, and family community, but really to civilians and everybody that wants access and wants care. So with BetterHelp, we are able to provide the full complement of BetterHelp online mental health therapies and services, plus adding loved ones, which we don't identify or determine or outline what a loved one is. It could be a neighbor, a teacher, a friend, a child, whomever, for $25 a month and $175 for civilians for the core membership. That's 50% off what you can get from any other platform. Even if you go directly to BetterHelp proper, it's $300, $280 to $300 for membership, and you can't add family members. So the cost component of this, barrier number 3, we have made very, very accessible for folks to utilize this. So if anybody was interested in mental health services at all, they could come to us, be direct to a therapist, confidential, discreet, and the cost is a fraction of what it would cost anywhere else. We're able to provide this because of who we are and who we serve, right? So we're able to be groundbreaking in this capacity because our mission is to bring mental health to as many people as possible that need it, because we know that there is a massive, massive need for it. We have a few ways to bring that service to people. The first is direct patient to us, where they would just sign up and utilize the mental health services. The second is like a sponsorship program where an individual would buy a gift card or a coupon for a loved one or somebody they want to provide services to, enter their email, and then that person would be emailed the code to sign up and utilize it for whatever denomination they pre-purchased. And then finally, our gift card option, which is like nonprofits or for-profits or anybody that wants to buy products gift cards in bulk and then give out anonymously, like in a coffee can in your coffee shop of your building. People can just grab a card and go seek services, because there is a tremendous need, and there's a ton of studies we have referenced on our website of the productivity increase when you seek mental help, when your employees have it, when your teammates have it. So we've grown outside of even the military soft component as far as bringing affordable mental health care to the community at large while removing all the barriers. Okay. All right, so where does that take us to here? So all roads lead to Pike, right? So all those bullets on the left there are things that I learned as a leader in Pi Kappa Alpha when I was 18 to 20 years old, 30 years ago. And they all still apply today. And I talked about some of the scenarios through special operations and how we integrate with our host nation forces and guerrilla leadership and partner forces, and how we got to think critically, build teams with partners, build teams with peers that we don't know, that are all on an equal playing field, and you need to be a leader or you need to be a follower. But team building is a core component of that. That still, as I've highlighted several times here, moves through every facet of my professional life in the business world, is that team building team integrity, and really, really focusing on, what motivates people, how to manage the team effectively. And all that started 30 years ago. Problem solving, critical thinking, absolutely essential tasks. And that comes with practice, right? Some people are inherently good at it, but it comes with practice. The more problems you have to solve, the more opportunities you have to creatively think, the better you'll be at it, right? So motivating and creative purpose, right? It's kind of two peas in a pod, right? What motivates people in any role? What motivates people to do the right thing in your fraternity, right? To stay out of trouble, to make good decisions, right? What motivates them to run for a position in your house? Okay. What motivates somebody to do something in the business world where they want to jump into a new endeavor and try something new? Mission driven, that's a given, right? Mission is a big thing in the military. It's our goal. It's what we do. The same thing applies in the civilian world. What is our mission? How are we going to get there? Okay, moral clarity, tough decisions, also intertwined, right? In your environment, assuming that a lot of you guys are chapter fellows down there right now in the trenches, you have some moral challenges that are going on. I can guarantee it, right? It never ends, right? A lot of moral challenges in the Army, a lot of gray area decision making, especially when you're dealing with, foreign nations, host nation forces that may not share the moral compass that we do, and have very, very unique ways of solving problems. Some of them probably illegal, right? How do you deal with that, right? Those scenarios continue on throughout your career. Networking never ends, right? You start it in your chapter right now. These friends you have now are going to be very successful folks across many different industries down the road, and will lead to other things. What we have now here with the Pike Network and all these other phenomenal tech tools really, really empower the networking capability. That's critical, right? So I build these teams through a network. They start with my personal network, but then they expand to the network of the additional team members, right? So everybody at Revolutionary Telehealth, every single person has a direct relationship with me or one of the team members. So that's part of the power of what we bring to bear, is that real joint shared vision of personal relationships, right? So that's a big thing that we're able to do with my team here. All started from a network that expanded to other networks. People skills needs to be developed, right? Critical component. How do you deal with people? How do you manage with people? Ties into the rest. And I also talked about learning from failure. It's going to happen. It's the sooner it starts, the thicker your skin is, the easier it is to deal with. It always sucks, but the easier it is to deal with as you move forward and try new things. Learn from your experiences, internalize it, figure out why it happened, figure out how to solve that problem, not so it doesn't happen again, and then move forward. And that concludes my brief. I think I'm 35, 40 minutes or so. With that, I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Kris. We already have one question in the chat from Aaron. How did you overcome the finding quality team members problem? And I think just to expand upon that question further, just talking about in general, like what kind of skills, characteristics, and whatnot you're looking for as you're trying to build your team.
No, that's great. That's great. So great question. So I can tell you we'll just focus on the business component of this. So in my first company, I had interviewed and hired, I'm not kidding, 100 plus 1099 salespeople. So I became a professional hirer, interviewer throughout that process. And I learned a lot about people, and I learned a lot about, what one's capabilities are in a very, very short snippet of time on a quick, 5 minute discussion online. The the hard working, the intelligence, and the charisma are something, or people skills are something that is tough to determine, but it is absolutely essential to your success. Each position that you hire for has unique requirements, right? Like my CFO, my CPA doesn't need to be the most extraordinary public speaker to go out there and win hearts and minds and influence people, right? He needs to know how to manage money and budget and forecasting and all of that because that's his specialty, right? But we have a marketing woman who is exceptional at outreach and building new relationships and utilizing her skill set. So each position has a different qualifications criteria. It's not cookie cutter. But what I could tell you is, and it ties back into my last statement, is the building of this team, the building of my last team is wholly integrated of who I know from my personal network. So it's trusted agents, right? That's tough. You can't always do that, but I mean, if you're still in school right now, I'm 30 years ahead of you. So I have 30 years of network that I have built across the globe that I can leverage to pull people in that I think would be good fit, depending on the particular situation. So that network development will provide you the Rolodex of opportunity to find the right person. So what we have here are 12 of the right people. And like I stated earlier, if I may not know them directly initially, it's a direct contact of one of my close confidants that I know directly. And that's kind of how it goes. So I don't think there's a cookie cutter model for what right looks like. It's just dependent on the mission, the position, and what you're looking for to fill that. And in a hiring capacity as like a standard employee, right? You're looking at things a bit differently than a partner or a key stakeholder in a startup, that you really need that go-getter mentality. You really need the courage to push through adversity, to accept failure, and keep climbing, right? To climb out of the hole because somebody's invested in that, whether it be through force of personality or whatever ties them to that mission is what you as a leader need to determine beforehand, right? And then identify that, and then that is the hook that motivates them to be successful and to overall work towards mission success.
Awesome. Another question we have is, how do you balance? We just got a big one. How did you balance the business hiring / training and running the business as a non-technical founder?
Let me pull the screen over so I can look. Okay, so I brought in tech experts from my network, right? So I can play a little bit of video game here and there and turn on my computer, and that's about it's about all I have from the tech perspective. So from my network for Revolutionary Telehealth in particular, our CTO is somebody that I worked with for 5 or 6 years at Special Operations Command Europe, right? Who's a tech wizard that we brought on board to be our CTO and to run our tech program, right? So he's a trusted agent, apps, because we're dealing with HIPAA compliance, we're dealing with medical, right? So it's a very, very controlled environment. You can't just outsource this to India and have a bunch of Muldoons out there running your tech program, right? Like it needs to be locked tight. This is the most regulated industry in the country. So, he is a trusted agent we're able to bring in and make a core part of the team. And then he builds out the program, and then we outsource the pieces necessary under his supervision and stuff like that. For Lodgepole, for my first company, albeit it was tech, it wasn't anything compared to what Revolutionary Telehealth is as far as tech. It was just a sales platform, a website, and a very standard business, QuickBook invoicing kind of thing. So it was very light on the tech compared to what this is, which is we've built the Revolutionary Telehealth website is a completely integrated, self-built program that integrates our doctors networks, our pharmacies, our telehealth platforms, like all these different things are integrated custom that were created by our tech teammates that we brought on board.
Awesome. We got a couple in the chat popping off right now. From Liam, do you have advice for someone going into the military from university? I graduated last year and I'm preparing to go to OCS for the Marine Corps in May.
Whew. Do I have advice? Don't go to the Marines. Just kidding. So our chief marketing officer, her son is graduating high school and wants to be a Marine infantryman. So we had me, our Navy SEAL partner, Navy SEAL captain, Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel, talking to him about some options, right? We have a very unique experience in the special operations community. And so you're going to go to OCS for the Marines. I mean, it's exceptional, right? Do you know what you want to do? I don't even know if you get to choose your position, but the guidance that I give to people that want to go to selection or try to succeed in special operations, it's just a few things, and it carries across every military component. And I'm telling you, if you do these, you'll be successful. The first is be in absolute tip-top physical condition, right? You control that, right? So there's no excuse to show up out of shape or unable. Be in the best damn shape you can be in your life, right? That is going to make your life a lot easier, right? That's one, and you control that. Two is play well with other kids, right? That whole team building thing I'm talking about and how to integrate in a team, whether you're a leader or a follower, right? If you are able to play well with your other Marines, your other trainees, it's going to make your life much easier. It's going to make your chances much more successful. The third, and you also control this one, is don't quit. Right now, the special operations community is different because the Marines want you to be a Marine, right? Like they're not trying to cut you; they're going to shape you and help you be successful. But in generally speaking, like don't quit. You're there for a reason. Go in there with the mindset that you're not going to quit. You control those three things, right? Being a team player, being a leader, it's a little more difficult because you have to navigate a lot of different terrain. But being in shape and not quitting, 100% within your control. And those are my three core things. If somebody's able to do that, you will be successful in your military endeavor.
Awesome. Question from Jeff. A brother Air Force veteran has a housebound spouse who could use Revolutionary Telehealth services. How do they get started?
Yeah, perfect question. So you go to our website, which is on the flyer there, revth.co, and you'll see, go to mental health, you'll see BetterHelp, you'll see ComHealth, and you just go there, you sign up, you put it in your car, and you check out, right? If you want to buy it for yourself. And then within a day, you're linked up with a therapist. There's something I didn't talk about because I didn't want to go too far in the weeds, but we have a scalable program. So if you start with ComHealth app, if you sign up for the ComHealth app, you could start with a 5-minute meditation session or 10-minute sleep aid, right? And then it's scalable depending on your needs and your requirements. So it scales all the way up in care until it tops out and says, you need to talk to a licensed clinical therapist. Here's Revolutionary Telehealth's opportunity to do that, which is our BetterHelp partnership. So it automatically translates to that other opportunity. But you can sign up for either, you can sign up for both. And it's very, very simple. It's just a standard checkout process. You sign up and then you'll receive an immediate email with instructions. And then you get to, if you're talking BetterHelp in particular, you'll be linked up directly with BetterHelp to find your therapist, right? You can pick general demographics. I want a woman, middle age, with experience in business stress or PTSD or sexual assault, right? You can pick your general demographics and experience of your therapist. And if you don't like your therapist, you could find another one and get one within a day. I will tell you that we have 100% satisfaction right now on all of the folks that we have that aren't part of our core team that are reporting back to us on their experiences with our therapy opportunities. It probably won't stay that way because not everybody's happy all the time. But at this moment in time, it's a great program for people that are interested in online mental health therapy. And you could do this from the top of a mountain. You could do it from your garage, right? It's complete ease of access. So if you have any questions, email me at info@rev. It's all over our website, and I'll personally make sure you're taken care of if you have any questions or issues, and we'll get you guys set up.
Awesome. We're going to, I think, just do two more questions here. What daily disciplines have had the greatest long-term impact on your success as a CEO?
That's a good one. Hmm. I've never had that question before. So in special forces, it's not conventional military. So it's big boy rules, big person rules. You make your own way, right? You do your own PT, you do your own, especially the higher you go up in rank. Um, you got to stay focused. So in the business world, maintaining the ability to juggle multiple tasks and multiple critical things never ends. Like I get hit with something every single day, and I need to stay focused and dialed to do that. So I was an active jujitsu practitioner for 8 years. I actually had to hang up the gi about a year ago. Multiple shoulder surgeries, hip surgery. I'm a mess, and I get too beat up. I can't hang with young bucks anymore, right? So that physical training though was the most significant thing that I had to tie me still to that military kind of maneuver, that military flow that I've been experiencing my entire adult life, right? Just stopped, right? Jiu-jitsu allowed me to continue to train, be out there with good people, build that team, have that experience, and move my body in a way that would maintain my mental health. So mental health is significant, right? Like I signed up for BetterHelp. My therapist is a not a PTSD or a special operations experience, but a woman business stress expert, right? Because business stress sucks and it's real, right? It's very different than military stress. Nobody's shooting at me. I don't have to worry about guys dying, right? But it's important just the same, and it wears on you just as much. So maintaining physical health and maintaining mental health are two critical components that starting early will carry you through and put you in a much better position than a lot of people my age and older that had the just suck it up mentality, right? Deal with it. You can position yourself now to deal with those challenges. I can tell you, I've had multiple discussions recently with a ton of different groups, and you talk about World War II veterans who are there's a few left, right? Now, Korea, Vietnam, right? They're aging quickly. They're all in their mid late 70s, right? And then you have a million global war on terror veterans that are my generation that have deployed overseas and have, a lot of us have some pretty hairy experiences that we don't want to be in the same place with mental health that we were at the World War II veterans, where they're 95 and they're finally getting the care and the recognition that they need, right? We can address this now as a precursor, right? As a preventative kind of care that people can take advantage of now that will carry them through their life and help them be more successful. So mental health and physical health will guide you in your journey through, adulthood, business, and onward.
Awesome. Well, we got one question left. For those of you that maybe didn't get your question answered, I dropped a link to the Pike Network in the chat. If you haven't joined that, it's a really cool platform to connect with. At this point, in 6 months, over 3,000 Pikes who've joined the platform. Kris is on there, so feel free to connect with him and shoot him a question. And I don't want to speak for him, but he can help you answer whatever it is. The last question we have here, Kris, is how do you lead even during the moments of uncertainty or in times where you may have had imposter syndrome?
Oh my God, what a great question. I have imposter syndrome every freaking day. Every day. And I'm not kidding. Like, do I know anything about healthcare? Well, I do now, but hell no. Right? Like, but let's start a telehealth company. Like who does that? Right? Because I had a mission, I had a goal, and why the hell not? Right? But I mean, that's an exceptional question. So every day, like when I started my first company, I was talking to billionaires, to they all failed, by the way, but the emergency manager of LA County, the mayor and fire chief of LA, like crazy relationships that have been developed through my network, where my network brought in these opportunities, and I was so underprepared to deal with these opportunities. I learned failure. I learned so much from looking like an idiot, because people can smell the bull if you don't know what you're talking about. And those early days of failure help fuel me today. But every day I have to creatively think about how I'm going to solve a problem. Now I have a phenomenal team. I'm not a one-man show. So I have a phenomenal team of experts. And if it's a finance question or a marketing question or a medical question or a tech question, right? It's like, boom, over to my team, trusted agents who could answer that question. But yeah, great question. And the imposter syndrome is so real. You don't get started unless you have imposter syndrome. Nobody just jumps into being awesome, right? You got to start somewhere, and part of that is the confidence just to do it and take that risk, so you're not regretting it down the road. You may or may not make it. Work within your limits. Like one of my core kind of priorities was financing, right? Like I'm not going to make my family eat ramen noodles because my business is failing. So I plan everything where I can self-sustain that operation, right, within those left and right limits. So that there's a many different ways you can do that, but that was the way I did it. It took time to build that product, but I knew that I had a lot to learn. This is a learning experience, which you never stop learning. And I just applied all those same tools and all those same skills on a daily basis. And I do it every day still.
Perfect. Well, Kris, thank you for your presentation, sharing your life experience with everyone, and answering all those questions. Thank you to everyone who joined. If you are interested in more of these, our next online speaker series is on March 26th at 10 a.m. Central Time. We're doing a little early morning one with Todd Yoakum, who is a AI expert and advisor to various different startups. So we're keeping these rolling, so continue to join. And once again, Kris, thank you for your time here this evening.
Hey, thanks for jumping on, guys. I really appreciate you.
Have a great night, everyone.
Bye-bye.